Why the purest souls are destroyed first, Dostoevsky's truth. Why is it that the purest souls, the ones who carry kindness not as a performance but as a way of being, are often the first to fall apart in this world? Why does life seem to crush those who are the most gentle, the most sincere, the most unguarded? This isn't sentimentality. It's not a poetic exaggeration. It's a brutal, observable reality across time, culture, and experience. And Dostoevsky didn't just notice it, he lived it, studied it, and revealed it in the souls of his characters. He understood something most of us sense but struggle to explain, that the more beautiful a soul is, the more pain it must endure, not because it deserves it, but because the world doesn't know what to do with it. Look at Alyosha in The Brothers Karamazov. He is a man of deep compassion, spiritual innocence, and unshakable love. But the world around him is loud, cynical, chaotic. His softness is not rewarded, it is questioned, misunderstood, and even mocked. He becomes a silent witness to pain, betrayal, and moral collapse. And yet, he holds his ground. Not through power, not through cleverness, but through unwavering grace. But what Dostoevsky shows us through Alyosha and many other characters is that purity is not a shield. It doesn't protect you. In fact, it does the opposite. It exposes you. Because when you are pure, you don't hide behind ego. You don't defend yourself with manipulation. You're open, vulnerable. And in a world built on competition, that openness becomes dangerous.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your kindness is being used against you? Like the more honest you are, the lonelier you become. Like your softness makes you invisible in a world that only sees sharp edges. That feeling isn't a flaw in you. It's a reflection of a world that rewards performance over presence, strategy over sincerity. But Dostoevsky wasn't merely documenting this pain, he was giving it meaning. He saw that the destruction of the pure soul is not a failure. It's a revelation. It reveals what kind of world we live in. And it asks us, are we willing to be pure anyway, even if the cost is everything? This is where it gets deeper, because the pure soul doesn't just suffer from external cruelty. It suffers from its own sensitivity, from the fact that it feels everything. While others numb themselves, distract themselves, or rationalize their behavior, the pure soul stays awake, painfully awake. It carries the burdens of others. It sees what no one else wants to see. It forgives when it isn't asked to. It gives when there's nothing in return. And that kind of living takes a toll. It's like carrying fire with bare hands. You start to burn even if the fire is beautiful. And Dostoevsky, with his own lifelong battle with pain, addiction, and spiritual doubt, understood that the purest souls are not destroyed because they are weak. They are destroyed because they are too strong to become corrupt. But here's the twist. The destruction of the pure soul is not always the end. Sometimes it's a kind of transformation, a shedding of illusion, a crucifixion that leads not to death but to resurrection. In The Idiot, Prince Mishkin is a Christ-like figure, innocent, compassionate, and tragically incapable of surviving in a society built on lies. He is not understood. He is not loved in the way he deserves. And yet, through his suffering, we are shown a mirror. We see ourselves, our compromises, our betrayals, our failures to love. Dostoevsky uses the destruction of the pure soul not to depress us, but to convict us, to make us ask, if this is how we treat the innocent, what does it say about us? The silent sacrifice, when the world doesn't deserve goodness, but can't survive without. There's a paradox that Dostoevsky understood better than most. The world does not deserve the purest souls, but it needs them, desperately. The pure-hearted often walk through life unnoticed, uncelebrated, and even ridiculed. But remove them entirely, and the entire structure of human connection begins to rot. Because it is these souls, quiet, unassuming, unselfish, who hold the moral fabric of society together. They are the ones who forgive when no one apologizes, who love when no one asks for it, who remain honest when lies are more profitable. They are the unseen gravity that keeps the world from spinning off into full collapse, but they do it silently, without credit, without applause, and often without surviving the weight of the very compassion that defines them. Think about your own life. Who are the people who shaped you not by power but by presence? Not by brilliance, but by warmth. Maybe it was a parent who sacrificed without complaint. A friend who listened when you had nothing left. A teacher who believed in you when you couldn't believe in yourself. These people don't go viral. They don't trend. They don't command attention. But they change lives. Not through dominance, but through consistency. Not by winning, but by being there. And yet, these are the very people who are most likely to burn out, to be taken for granted, even to be broken by the very people they're trying to heal. Why? Because goodness, in its purest form, rarely protects itself. It exposes itself. And the world confused by this kind of love often responds with fear, or worse, indifference. Dostoevsky wasn't naive. He didn't believe that goodness always wins. In fact, his novels are filled with characters who are crushed by the weight of their own conscience. But what he did believe, what he knew, was that even if goodness doesn't win in the conventional sense, it still holds the ultimate power, the power to redeem. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov is haunted not just by his crime, but by the quiet purity of Sonia, a woman who suffers immensely yet never hardens her heart. She is not powerful in the way society defines power. But her steadfast kindness breaks through Raskolnikov's intellectual armor. She doesn't argue with him. She doesn't try to fix him. She simply loves him. And that love, quiet and unshakable, is what ultimately saves him. Not from punishment, but from himself. But here's the deeper tragedy. Most pure souls won't live to see the fruit of their love. They plant seeds in soil they'll never walk on. They water trees that will only bloom after they're gone. And this is where we must confront an uncomfortable truth. There is a kind of goodness that can only exist through sacrifice. It's not fair, it's not balanced, but it's real. The mother who gives everything and dies young. The activist who never sees the change they fought for. The friend who carries someone else's burden until they collapse. These people may be forgotten by history, but they are remembered by eternity. Because their goodness didn't come from a desire to be seen, it came from a deeper place. A place Dostoevsky called the conscience of the soul. So what does this mean for us? For you? Does it mean you should let the world walk all over you? No. Dostoevsky never said purity means passivity. In fact, the purest souls often have the strongest boundaries, not out of selfishness, but out of respect for what they carry inside. They know their light is rare, so they protect it. They don't let everyone in. They don't fight every battle, but they shine quietly, consistently, fiercely. And that's the real challenge. Because in a world that rewards noise, stillness takes courage. In a world that rewards performance, authenticity is rebellion. And in a world that punishes tenderness, staying soft becomes a form of spiritual warfare. So I'll ask you this. Are you willing to protect the part of yourself that the world doesn't understand? Are you willing to be kind even when it's not returned? To be honest when it costs you? To love when it hurts? That doesn't mean becoming a martyr. It means becoming real. And realness, in the Dostoevskian sense, is not about perfection. It's about depth. It's about choosing to live from the soul, not the ego. And when you do that, yes, you will suffer, but you will also matter. Not in a way that trends, not in a way that wins awards, but in a way that leaves a mark on the invisible architecture of the world. The kind of mark that doesn't fade, the kind of mark that saves. The weight of mercy, how to stay pure in a world that profits from your fall. Staying pure in this world is not a romantic journey. It is an act of deep courage. Because everything in the modern world is designed to make you forget your soul. You are constantly told Toughen up, protect yourself, play the game, don't feel too much, don't care too deeply. But Dostoevsky knew the truth. Losing your softness is not strength, it's surrendering to a lesser version of yourself. And yet, purity, true, spiritual, moral, emotional purity is not ignorance. It is not weakness. It is not naivety. It is clarity. It means you see the darkness and you choose to love anyway. You feel the cruelty and you choose not to become it. That is not easy. That is not painless. That is the hardest path of all. There is a line in The Brothers Karamazov where Ivan says, "I return my ticket." He's talking about a world that allows children to suffer, to die, to be broken, and he says, if that's the price of harmony, he wants no part of it. He's not being dramatic. He's being precise. He is expressing the moral revolt of the pure soul when it realizes how much suffering the world tolerates. And this is where many pure souls break, not because they're weak, but because they see too clearly. They see how the world profits from pain, how cruelty is normalized, how silence is rewarded. And when you carry that kind of moral vision, it's not just hard to live, it's hard to breathe. So the question isn't, why do pure souls fall? The question is, how do they stand at all? But Dostoevsky doesn't leave us in despair. He offers something deeper than optimism. He offers faith, not shallow belief, but the kind of faith that grows in the soil of suffering. A faith that says, even if I am broken, I must still love. Even if the world mocks me, I must still believe in goodness. Even if the system profits from my fall, I will not become part of its machinery. This is where mercy becomes a form of rebellion. When you forgive, not because it's easy, but because you refuse to become bitter. When you help, not for praise, but because it's who you are. When you remain human in a world that rewards cruelty, that is mercy. And mercy is the language of the soul. But let me be clear. This isn't about self-sacrifice without boundaries. Pure souls are not meant to be doormats. They are meant to be lighthouses. They don't chase ships. They stand firm. They shine. And the ships that are meant to find them will. Dostoevsky isn't telling us to let the world break us. He's telling us to become unbreakable in a different way. Not through hardness, but through depth. To suffer without losing hope. To love without losing ourselves. To forgive without forgetting who we are. And when we do that, we don't just survive, we transform the world around us. Not through force, not through control, but through presence. Through the quiet, relentless power of a pure heart. So let me ask you, as we close this journey, what kind of person do you want to be when no one is watching? When the applause fades, when the rewards vanish, when the world shows you its worst face, who will you become? That is the moment the pure soul is tested, not in public but in private, not in success but in suffering. And if you can remain soft, kind, honest, and alive in that moment, you haven't been destroyed. You've been refined. Because the truth is, the world may never understand your goodness. But that doesn't mean it's wasted. It means it's real. And the realest things often live in silence, grow in darkness, and change everything from the inside out.